And then they also need finance. So we as Unternehmertum, we try to help founders at all stages. So for example, we have a program where we fund early stage startups, for example, with 100,000 euros in a convertible note. And this is one part of my work. And then I'm also the chief operating officer of this organization. So as I mentioned, there are 20 teams, okay, with different business models. How can we stay one company? How can we ensure team cohesion? So for example, how can we do internal communication? How can we organize ourselves? So these are also amazing topics that I'm responsible for.
Mm-hmm. I see. Of course, all the programs, I'm just scrolling through them as we're talking, is something pretty interesting. And of course, we'll link it down here in the show notes below so everybody can click on it. So that means usually you are more or less offering classes in entrepreneurship, but when they're basically hooked on entrepreneurship, you also help the students to basically start out with the company, as you said, for example, with some start capital. I would be curious, do you have a few successful examples that worked with you in the past?
Exactly. So you have to imagine it's like a funnel, right? So you start with enabling young talents, but then it's also very open to startups that are later stage. So for example, our Xpreneurs program, any startup can apply for the Xpreneurs program, and the team picks what they say is the best and most interesting and promising startup in that stage. And around all that, okay, you must imagine Unternehmertum as an ecosystem, because it's not about just, okay, being in a program or listening to a class or being there at in these 3 months. Unternehmertum works also with corporates, with Mittelstand, has a network of investors. So it's all about this, being part of this ecosystem, bringing the right people together, and supporting innovation. And so, for example, Celonis might be one example. Some people have heard of that's the most valuable German startup. Or what is also an interesting startup is ESA Aerospace. They build small rocket launchers. So it's one of the high hopes startups for European space market.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And you mentioned Flixbus, for example. So Unternehmertum Venture Capital Partners, for example, they invested at a very early stage into Flixbus. And now it's a huge, a huge successful, innovative organization that also entered the US market by the acquisition of Greyhound, for example. So it's, an amazing story.
Yeah, Lilium, the flying cabs, the flying taxis, right? Yeah, I see. There are a lot of very interesting things out there. So, could you also, as a non-student of TUM, could